The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Senator Kevin Avard, and today we're going to be talking about dental health care for the developmentally disabled in our communities. And I have a few guests here. We have Danielle Poirier. Did I say that right? And
yeah.
Lisa Beaudoin from Able, New Hampshire. And Kelly Earhart.
Yes.
Welcome. I said it right though, right?
Yes.
I did, okay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
It's good to be here.
Good.
Yes.
I'm glad
Thank you
that
for
you're
taking
here.
the time out of your schedule to meet with us.
Absolutely. Well, this whole thing about some of our most needy in our communities have health care, but for some reason the legislature left out the fact that they shouldn't be covered under dental. Now, if somebody gets an abscessed tooth or they have an infection in their mouth and they end up going to the emergency room, the taxpayers are going to be paying a ton of money for that.
Yes.
So why wouldn't we pay for preventative, just routine dental care to prevent this? What was the reasoning behind that? Do you know?
I'm fairly certain fundamentally it was about being fiscally very conservative, right? Just the legislature wants to minimize its Medicaid expenditures, and our current Medicaid waiver does not include an oral health care benefit. So when the managed care legislation passed for acute care services, the legislation was written to preclude any inclusion of a value-added oral health care benefit.
Which seems strange because prevention is going to save you a lot more money.
Yeah.
Now, you are also part of the well, I guess the second phase of managed care was going to be going through, and Able and a number of organizations came and basically saved the day because people in the disability community or developmentally disabled, they have very specific needs. And for managed care to treat, it didn't make sense.
It did not make sense. New Hampshire, in the late 70s, passed RSA 171A, which created our current locally based system of supports and services known as our area agency system. And it was pioneering. It was the first in the nation ever. And it paved the way for the closure of Laconia State School, of which New Hampshire was the first state in the nation to do so. We have a very proud history of doing right by making people who experience disabilities full citizens.
Do you work with Gateway? Here in
I am in, Able New Hampshire is in relationship with all the service providers and all of the stakeholders across the disability community. So we work with Sandy Pelletier, we work with Mindy and the legislative liaison there, Susan, and a lot of others at all the area agencies. Advancing civil and human rights for people with disabilities takes a strong stakeholder group. It includes first the people who experience disabilities themselves, right, their families, because they know best how to move forward the policies that create inclusion. Yeah.
Danielle, what's your experience? How did you get involved with this conversation?
Well, I have been lucky enough that my parents have been able to help me cost-wise with a lot of my dental care. However, it has cost them a lot of money in the long run because of the fact that I've just last year I needed to have 6 cavities filled, and then this past year we've had to get a crown that we've only paid half. We had to split it in half.
Right.
And the bottom line is when I'm only working, when I have to work 2 jobs and I still don't have and that's part-time, and I still don't have the money to pay for dental.
Sure.
There's something wrong with that picture.
Yeah. And
And especially because when you don't have good oral health care and you can't afford good oral health care, then it starts to affect other parts of your body. We're talking heart disease, respiratory, stroke, a ton of stuff. And it can all be prevented if we have the right people behind us to help us change the policy and be able to get better dental health care.
yeah, I spoke with the Commissioner Myers not too long ago. It was a couple weeks ago now, I think. Time's going by fast. But we all had a discussion, and we pointed out that there was a specific chapter in the law that said that it wasn't going to be covered. And I was kind of baffled, you know, with the simplicity of it all, just knowing, you know, just getting routine care. What
I mean,
it
to me,
does.
it seems like discrimination. Like
Well,
they're
I-
discriminating against,
Yeah.
like they'll let people without a disability have dental insurance, but like people with a disability don't get anything. To me, that's kind of a discrimination type thing, in my opinion.
Well, I haven't heard anybody talk about discriminating. It may, for some, could have been an oversight. For whatever reason, I think it's nuts. Kelly, what are your thoughts?
I think that a lot of people like myself have to. I was employed before I became disabled, and I had dental insurance through my employer, but I had a yearly limit, and I had run out by March, so then anything above that had to be paid 100% out of pocket. And I used to go to Harbor Homes, and they took Medicaid because I didn't have private dental insurance.
That's right. I forgot they have dental there.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
But they do it on a sliding scale, but they don't do crowns and they don't do root canals. They just do fillings and basically cleanings. But not everyone can get to Nashua to have their dental care done that way because they live in other parts of the state.
Yeah. So the commute could be something that stops them from getting it. So, yeah, it's interesting. I forgot about. They're on High Street.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
And-
used to go there,
Yeah.
and I still go there for other services, but I have private dental insurance now, but my benefit was $375 for every 3 months, and they, for 2019, are going to have it $150 for every 3 months, and I don't think that's enough. Because one of the times I went to Harbor Homes, I had 5 fillings that needed to be done, and that's way more than $150. It's more than $150 for a filling, depending on how many surfaces it is. I also went to Greater Nashua Dental Connection, but they don't take insurance, and they're kind of too expensive. They make you pay at time of service. You can't do the payment plan or anything like that.
Were you happy with the care that you were getting at Harbor Homes?
Not really.
Okay.
Because they said that I needed things that when I went to a private dentist, they said I didn't need. They said I needed like crowns, and then I went to general dental. They said I needed crowns and like gum surgery, and I didn't need any of those things.
So what type of work do you do?
I work in retail at Marshall's, and I don't have dental insurance through them. I work part-time. But if I work too many hours, I'll lose my Medicaid. So I have to, every year it seems like I get a raise, and I have to cut my hours back. And I'll probably have to cut them back again because of the 2.8% increase in Social Security. I do get a raise in June, so then I have to cut back in June again.
What do you do for work?
I have 2 jobs. I work doing data entry at a chiropractor office. I do that for about 6 hours a week, and then I work 10 hours a week doing cleaning at Somerset Swim and Fitness in Nashua.
Oh, okay.
But again, that's only that's 16 hours. So that's only part-time, $10 an hour. It's still, I mean, I don't really make enough to pay for my dental either.
Right.
And I've never gotten dental insurance. I do go to Dental. In my opinion, Gentle Dental is really, I love my dentist there. It's Eric Anthony. I mean, I've told my mom I never want to go anywhere else because he gets me. They accommodate the fact that I get nervous at the dentist, so they let me use my iPad, or because they have Wi-Fi, so I can watch movies, listen to music, whatever I need to do to make myself comfortable. And I think that's a really big factor because there are a lot of people who get nervous when going to the dentist.
Well, I'm one of them, and
So-
when I get in that chair, my hands go like this, and
Yeah.
I get back.
Yeah.
And they, are you okay? And I, oh yeah, fine. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I get really nervous.
But yeah, they really understand the needs of their clientele, and I think that's awesome.
Right.
And they're also willing to work with us. They have payment plans. They work with the families to make it work. So they do try. But it's not. I don't find it their fault that it's that we can't afford it. It's that it's more just that it's just too much money.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we're trying to fix it. We need the legislature to look at it and to see what the cost savings are over the long haul.
Yeah.
And how does ABLE get involved with this? How did?
So Able New Hampshire is a grassroots, member-driven, community-based organization, and we offer trainings that help ordinary citizens to become extraordinary leaders. So we give people the tools to find their voice,
Yeah.
to share their stories and experiences, so that legislators and other stakeholders who are involved in disability policy can actually understand the impacts of when something is either going well or going wrong
Right.
for people with disabilities. So Able New Hampshire is involved on oral health care because oral health care in New Hampshire is inequitable across the state.
Yes.
And it's inaccessible across New Hampshire. So in addition to it being a cost challenge, when we made that policy misstep in the managed care legislation, I think also at that point, we were still operating under the public policy idea that the head is separate from the body. But we now know, of course, that the mouth is the gateway to
Sure.
all health, right? And so we need to now connect the head back to the body, so to
Right.
speak, right? Because if you don't spend the $150 twice a year for that cleaning, you're looking at not only an abscess, but the opioids to take care of the pain, the cost of the extraction, the trip to the emergency room. If people don't get to the emergency room, it can go to the heart, it can go to the brain, and then we're looking at tens of thousands of dollars,
Right.
possible surgery, rehabilitative care. I mean, the cost exponentially increases when you don't actually spend the money. So some area agencies actually have pretty fun ways of fundraising because no Medicaid dollars are allowed to be spent on oral health care except for emergency care
And extractions.
and and extractions, right? So if you have an abscess tooth or a big infection,
They could take that tooth out and Medicaid cover that, but
Right.
that's about the only thing they would.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are upside down. I mean,
yeah.
Even
so some area agencies raise tens of thousands of
Right.
dollars and help to take the edge off of the cost for families who have no money to
Right.
allocate to oral health care for their loved ones. And then other area agencies take their fundraising dollars and have to distribute it in other types of unmet support needs. So currently, if you are receiving services through the developmental disability waiver, depending on where you live in the state, you may or may not have access to some extra fundraising dollars from your service provider. And it shouldn't be based on geography.
Yeah.
what does waiver mean? Everybody throws this word around,
Yeah.
and I guarantee the public doesn't know
Right.
what a waiver is.
Right. So a long time ago in the 1965, Medicaid was created, and it was created to help very poor people, people with disabilities, and senior citizens. And people with disabilities back in the 20th century lived mostly in institutions.
We're from
Right.
the 20th century, aren't
Right,
we?
yeah.
Jeez.
So in 1965, most people were sent off to an institution.
Right.
So Medicaid monies were provided to states to help pay for people who lived in institutions. A Medicaid waiver is the public policy program that made real the promise that people with disabilities should live in their home-based communities. So when you have a waiver, that is the money that permits you to not live in the institution, which is very expensive, which is a violation of civil and human rights, and to be in your home community. So if you have Medicaid waiver funds, those are the funds that allow you to have employment, social connections, engage in civic activities like voting or volunteering at church or in the public parks.
Now, do monies go to the Independent Living Foundation up north, up in Concord? Is it, is that part of this?
Granite State Independent
Granite, yes.
Yeah, so Granite State Independent Living has a number of programs. They do provide some services, so they get some Medicaid waiver funding,
Now,
but
these
not.
are for severely disabled people, or?
Area agencies provide a lot of supports and services for for people who experience significant disabilities. GSIL, Granite State Independent Living, has a number of different people. Originally, the independent living centers were for people who had significant physical disabilities, but maybe not intellectual or developmental disabilities. But now, Granite State Independent Living will serve anyone who would like to participate in the programs they offer.
Right,
And,
they were up on Loudon
as
Road,
far
I
as
believe.
the
Yeah.
area agencies, it's not just the severely disabled. They help others too. Like, I'm part of area agency. I believe, Kelly, you are, right?
I go to Gateways and
Yeah, we both do.
I have a DSP through Plus, but I think I'm fairly independent. And when people meet me, they say that you don't seem like you have a disability. I know that's the wrong thing for them to say, but they see me as being more independent than what their perception of someone who has a developmental disability or intellectual disability and severe mental illness together. They just think that I can't live on my own, I can't go to work on my own and do things on my own.
So there's a stereotype that goes with everything, right?
Right.
And
Yes.
people get categorized.
And I
yeah.
think part of that's been put in place since the institutions. That's been put in place, and because that's how people were viewed back then, it has been really hard to change that stereotype. We have gotten better, but we still have a long way to go to be able to change that stereotype to believing that instead of saying disabled, we are able to do anything. We're able to do anything that somebody who doesn't have a disability could do, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so I wanted you to come on the show to talk about this because the general public doesn't get the information. We look at it, we study it, we're engaged with it, and it's always in front of us. But the general public doesn't see,
Right.
what the gears are as far as what's going on up in Concord, what's
Right.
being done, what isn't being done. How are the people being served? How are they not being served? This is one of those situations where I think people fall through the cracks. And I call it the Department of Bureaucracy. Because if out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
And in order to get services, it's a nightmare. I sit on GELCAR, and for the public, GELCAR is a joint committee where there's House and Senate legislators, where we oversight the executive branch or the rulemaking. And we had one situation where an individual, she wasn't being covered because they didn't cover a particular medicine for her daughter. Her daughter couldn't drink water. So she needed a special powder in order to mix it with a powder.
Yeah.
And so she could drink or hydrate. It's not covered. It's not. She has to spoon feed her daughter, and of course then the diapers. And I thought, how is these are sometimes the most needy people, and they're not being covered. And I see abuses of the system. It happens. And I feel as though they steal from those that are really needing it, and I have issues with that.
Yeah.
But when people fall through the cracks, it really irks me because we're putting it out there. We're trying to help. I hate it when people exploit them for political purposes, and then nothing gets done.
Right.
And it happens.
Right. So one of the challenges with managed care for acute care services is that things like pre-authorization on medicines allow people who need powder to hydrate.
Yeah.
And then families have a lot of daily health care needs. They're working to pay the mortgage or pay the rent and buy food, and then to rush home because they have a DSP who needs to leave.
A DSP.
A direct support professional. And so the idea of getting on the phone and arguing for 5, 10, 15, or 20 hours a week for multiple weeks of the month, for months on end, and many families have to do this. For families impacted by disability, navigating managed care's tiers of being able to access what you need is very, very frustrating. And what it does is it finally pushes people out of seeking care. It's
hard.
It's why organizations like Able New Hampshire have to exist. Families that have stories like this need to be organized. Their stories need to be heard. And then we need to ask for the changes that will improve the lives of people who experience disabilities. Because, as you know, everybody with a disability can and wants to work, pretty much. I mean, very few people with a disability are not able to work. But if you have a mouthful of rotting teeth, who's going to hire you? If you have a mouth that's in pain, how are you going to be able to do the application and go to the interview and secure that job if your mouth is in pain, right? So we are not only impacting people's long-term health by not providing an oral health care benefit, we are also creating barriers to independence, community engagement,
And the quality of life.
and quality of life, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was a policy misstep, and we are so happy to be,
on the forefront trying to correct it.
yeah, let's get this done.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some legislation will happen this time around to correct it. I think preventative is definitely a key to lowering the cost of healthcare overall.
And
I think
honestly,
that's
that
what-
would be our biggest thing. If we could get preventative, because the way I see it is that they will pay for us to get extractions, but they could save so much money. If they could pay, if they Medicaid could pay for us to get preventative care, they'd be saving so much money on that, and because they wouldn't have to pay more money for us to get extractions.
Does it provide primary care physicians too?
Yes, everything but dental usually. Yeah, I get my
Everything
eyeglasses.
but dental. You can do psychiatrist therapy, but dental is like, no, we won't get it cleaned. We will tell you that you have an emergency. That's an emergency visit, and then they'll say, "Oops, that tooth has to come out because they can't fill it, they can't root canal it, and they can't crown it." So
And by the time it gets to that point, it's going to hurt.
Yeah,
Right.
what else do you have the choice of doing? You can't fix the tooth or save the tooth so it comes out.
And the other, like, so for me, I have my eyeglasses every other year. They're covered. Prescriptions, all my prescriptions are covered. I have Medicaid and Medicare, so it's all covered. I get my psychiatry covered, doctors, everything like that's covered, but I just can't get the help with dental either.
And that would take the edge off.
It would, yeah. I know it would help. I always feel bad, and I feel bad for my parents because, like, I feel like I don't want them to have to support me in that way anymore. But, like, in the same breath way, I know I can't do it either. So it's either they're gonna have to help me or I have to go without getting dental care. My parents have instilled good dental care in me ever since I was young, and I don't want to neglect that.
Sure.
So
Right, and just routine checkups are good. It's a good thing.
yeah, it is.
Right?
I go
Cleanings
every
and-
3 months
Yeah.
because I take medication that makes my mouth dry, and I need to do that. And I also need to get the fluoride treatments every 3 months, and if I don't do that, then I'll wind up in the chair and they'll say, well, you have 5 cavities, and then
Right.
depending on how bad they are, it could lead to an extraction.
And I can do I usually go 6 months because that's usually,
That's what I do.
yeah, I go every 6 months, and then every other visit I get the fluoride treatment as well.
So what do we want to take away from this conversation? Basically, for the community,
Vote for the legislative. If it comes out, vote for it.
Okay.
Make sure that it passes. Make sure that we are able to get the help that we need. Because bottom line, we can't necessarily fix it. But all our legislator out there who might be listening, you can help us.
so pay me now or pay me later,
Right, pretty much.
right?
Yeah.
Right. And
An ounce of prevention is worth
sure.
way more than a pound of cure.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is, again, I think also that quality of life as well. I think if you can give that preventative care so that there's not pain in between. By the time you're at the emergency room, there's
Right.
pain.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll be looking forward to that. And I believe if I do get elected, that'll be one of my first pieces of legislation. And I know we've got some irons in the fire. So
Well, I will definitely be voting for you for sure.
thank you for that. Vote often. That's a joke. Right.
Vote early.
Yes, I
Vote
will
early.
definitely.
Vote early. So how do people get in contact with ABLE or to
Yeah.
learn more about this?
So ABLE New Hampshire can be found on our website, which is currently under reconstruction. So it's messy and it doesn't look really great right now, but we're fixing that. It's www.ablenh.org. You can also call 878-0459, or you can email us at info@ablenh.org.
And who would typically reach out to you for help, for more information?
For more info,
Who does ABLE help?
families and individuals impacted by disability frequently call us, whether they're calling us about a special education challenge they're having with a school district, whether they're having a challenge with their area agency, whether they're having a challenge with a private provider. If there's a park in a community that is not going to be ADA compliant in its refurbishment, a family will call us and say, you know, our kid uses a wheelchair for mobility, and this new park that's going to be built they're refusing to include ADA accessibility in their design. So that kind of family would call us. So anybody who's interested in disability justice should call ABLE New Hampshire. And you know, we have partners all over the state.
Yeah.
We work closely with all of the organizations, whether it's service providers or the Disability Rights Center or the New Hampshire Council on Developmental Disability or the Institute on Disability or Granite State Independent Living. We have relationships all over the place. And as a disability community, we really move to advance people with disabilities getting what they need to be engaged, included citizens. So
I told you you wouldn't need that piece of paper because that comes from the heart.
And also, if there's anybody who wants to be part of the Nashua ABLE New Hampshire group, we are looking for people to join us and help us with this, with our dental stuff. So we welcome anybody who wants to join us.
which night of the month do we meet?
We meet the second Monday of the month.
Unless it's
At
a
the
holiday,
National Public
like Columbus
Library.
Day.
Like Columbus Day.
And
Okay.
Because we
And it's
meet
at-
at the library.
And it's at the National Public Library.
All right. Well, thanks for coming
7
on the
to
show.
8.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having
7
us.
to
7 to 8, yep.
All right.
Yep.
At the National Public Library.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
We are so thankful.
Yes.
You got it.
We're hoping this made a big difference.
Well, let's hope it does, and we hope this helps inform you as to what's going on at the legislature. And if you know somebody who needs some help, please call ABLE. They will help. So, thanks for watching Gate City Chronicles. Until next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.